Welcome to Big Shoulders, the show where we explore the civic technology space here in Chicago. I'm Adam Heckman, and today with me we have a phenomenal young woman. Her name is Maira Khwaja. And Maira is a student at the University of Chicago. She also happens to be a Civic Technology Fellow with Microsoft, and she has a fascinating background. Maira, welcome.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Let's start with you. You're a fourth-year student, or you're going to be a fourth-year student at University of Chicago. What are you studying?
I'm studying history and urban policy.
Okay.
I'm a history major, and I'm concentrating primarily on Chicago's history and public policy. So I focus a lot on education policy and housing policy. You find it's a good combination? Yeah, it's a wonderful major for what I'm interested in.
Terrific. And you're interested in?
I'm really interested in education policy. I'm really interested in housing policy. Overall, I've noticed that I've been very fascinated by Chicago's racial history and how that's been played out in our policies and politics. Especially
in education and in housing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about housing in a minute, but you are also part of the Institute of Politics.
Yeah.
What is that?
So the Institute of Politics is an extracurricular program at the University of Chicago. And it's basically for students who are interested in public service and politics. And its mission is to spark passion for public service and politics in its students. And basically we do that through extracurricular programming, mentorship, speaker series, fellows. So we have visiting fellows that'll stay for 10 weeks, and we can go to their office hours and get lunch with them and talk with them. And it's open to the public, and it's a really great way to get a very inside look into what has been effective and what's a meaningful way to spend your time in public service after college.
And as far as the student part of it, it's interdisciplinary, right? So you get quite a nice mix there. And you also were very active in starting the tech team? Yeah,
so I and one of the former Civic Tech Fellows were the co-chairs of the Student Civic Engagement branch of the Institute of Politics. And the Student Civic Engagement branch oversees 10 student projects. And one of those projects is Tech Team. And so those projects include the Women in Public Service Project, Tech Team, Citizen Schools, which basically we would go to schools and we would teach middle schoolers how to start their own campaign for something they're passionate about. So we had a lot of public service projects, so not just learning, but also application-based.
Which brings us to the central topic of this episode of Big Shoulders. You spent a summer doing MAPS Corps, correct?
Yeah.
What is MAPS Corps?
So MAPS Corps is a project started out of the University of Chicago's Medical Center through research done by the Southside Health and Vitality Studies, which basically found that in the south side of Chicago and in many urban areas, assets are undermapped, which basically means that...
Physical assets.
Like physical assets. So that could mean places where you could go for exercise, grocery stores, liquor stores, anything. Like whatever you name it that has an address, those things are hard to find information about compared to areas with more wealth. And that research was spearheaded by Dr. Stacy Lindau out of the Medical Center. So because of this research, they started this project called MAPS Corps, which was to basically walk the South Side, walk all 34 community areas of the South Side, and literally get updated addresses of every single asset in the South Side. So it was an asset-based project, and collect as much information as we could. So who the owner was, what resources all these assets provided, and then have it as public open data for all residents to use. And in addition to that, for health clinics to use in giving holistic prescriptions. So many participating health clinics around the South Side can, in addition to like prescribing someone medication for diabetes, can also then print out a holistic prescription called Healthy RX, which would tell people, all right, yeah, you need to take this medication, but you should also go to this specific asset for exercise. You should go to this specific place to buy your groceries. And all of these places, here are their addresses, and this is how close they are to you, et cetera.
And they were able to do that because of the work that MAPS Corps had done.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like it's very, I don't want to use the term grassroots, but it does take people walking the neighborhood and really understanding the neighborhood in depth. You are not from Chicago, and yet you chose to map a historically very rich neighborhood. Tell us about the neighborhood that you mapped and what you've discovered.
Yeah, so I mapped Bronzeville, and one of the biggest things I learned is that Bronzeville, which is historically called the Black Metropolis, is not actually a technical neighborhood division in Chicago. It's just a historical reference. Bronzeville actually refers to quite a few neighborhood areas, including Douglas, Fuller Park, McKinley Park, Oakland, and so I mapped this area with a community organization called Centers for New Horizons. And the youth that they employed. So we had 20 high school students, and then me and 3 other science-oriented graduate students. And we walked literally every single block of these 5 different community areas that we were assigned and collected all this information in our map app, which the University of Chicago developed.
And so you went door to door, validating not just the address, but the assets. And this meant you getting, very intimate with each physical space.
Yeah.
And did you find that it was difficult when you saw a place that may or may not have been abandoned to determine how to categorize all that?
Yeah, it was actually a really fascinating, and I often call it the most ground level, grassroots way to get to know a part of the city, because you would have to knock on each individual door or walk up and look in every window to make sure, is this place still in business? There's such high turnover rates that there's a reason why most large-scale mapping businesses like Google Maps or Bing, et cetera, Dun & Bradstreets don't stay up to date. Businesses come and go multiple times within 1 year. So we would go in, talk to whatever owner we could. And businesses often sell multiple things. So something could sell wigs and cell phones and food all in the same place. And then what do you categorize that as?
Right.
So that was always a really fun, honestly, challenge to go in and be like, all right, how am I going to categorize this? Talking to the owner, what is their primary function?
So it took a lot of shoe leather, a lot of brain work, and how long did it take you to map that neighborhood?
Well, so it's a constant project all year long. For us, it was 3 months, and then we would continuously update it throughout the year in cars after doing our footwork. But the most interesting part would definitely be the part with the youth during the summer, because in addition to our morning mapping time, we would have afternoon analysis of that data and sort of a public health education setting, being like, okay, what did we map today? What does that tell us about the communities? What were we surprised by? So we would always have discussions for the second half of the day.
That's really interesting. So the things I'm taking away from this is mapping is important because there are neighborhoods that are undermapped. The usage goes beyond trying to figure out where I could go for lunch. There's actually real good social and societal usage of it, and that this is an ongoing process.
Right, and it's so ongoing and so valuable that other cities are noticing our work. And as of this summer, we've expanded to Harlem in New York and Dublin, Ireland.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yeah.
People who are watching this that may be interested in getting involved in MapScore, what advice do you have for them?
I would say if you're interested in getting involved in mapping and the useful nature of mapping, to go onto MapScore's website and download our data. Use our data to build useful products, build maps for parents of children, and find out what you can make with our data.
Maira Khwaja, thank you for being on Big Shoulders. I'm Adam Heckman. Thanks for being with us.